Hello everyone and welcome to the banqueting hall at Chateau Clairbeau. And today's video is one we've been wanting to make for quite some time, which is where we give you guys, our followers, a chance to ask us some questions. So let's get straight into it and start with the first question. The first question is one that many people have been asking, and in particular our followers TJ Bren from Minnesota, Laurie Smith from somewhere in America, Linda Montz, and Maxine Pierce. What are they asking us?
I'd enjoy hearing about who you are. Do you have a construction background?
What do y'all do as a profession?
I think overall, people are curious what your background was in. A beautiful restoration in a stunning chateau. Can I ask who's we?
So in answer to that question, my name is Mike. I'm originally from the UK, but I spend a lot of my time now in Europe. In my younger days, I was very sporting, played a lot of tennis, a lot of hockey, did a lot of motor racing, and I do have a bit of a construction background. I have been involved in the property development business. I've also renovated a few houses, but nothing really like this chateau project. I've worked for myself for pretty much most of my life. I've been in the storage and delivery business, but for the last 20 years, I've run my own travel holiday business. Who's we? Because quite often in the videos that I make, I refer to we doing this, we did this, and really just force of habit. Most of the time it's me here by myself, although obviously I'm bringing in different artisans and contractors. And that would be the we that I'm referring to. Over the years, there have been many people who've worked here alongside me. So when I say we, that's what I'm referring to. All the guys and sometimes the girls who have helped here with the Chateau project. Some of them you will have seen in the videos, some of them you won't have seen. But everyone from stonemasons to carpenters, plumbers, electricians, painters, people just helping with the general labouring, friends who come and go. So a lot of people have been involved over the last 6 years, and that's the we. Let's move on to question 2. And this comes from Linda Montz and Julie Sohn. Let's hear what they want to know.
Why did you choose to buy a chateau, and how long have you owned it?
Why buy the chateau? It is a wonderful project.
Why buy a chateau? Well, that's a good question, isn't it? Most of my friends think it's because I'm totally mad, which I don't really think I am, maybe slightly mad, but not totally. And I think you do have to be a little bit crazy to enter into a project like this. How long ago was it bought? It was bought in October of 2019. Great timing because that was just before COVID. Why did I want to buy a chateau? Well, that's a very good question. I've always been interested in history, archaeology, and architecture, and a lot of those subjects tie in with owning a very old chateau, an 800-year-old chateau. I also love antiques, and antiques will fit very well in this chateau. But to get back to the very start of it, why the interest in buying a chateau? I think probably it started a very long time ago. There was a film that came out in 1974 called Stardust. Probably most of you haven't heard of it, but it was a sequel to a film of David Essex called That'll Be the Day. And towards the end of the film, the star that's played by David Essex, he ends up living in this old castle in Spain. And I don't know, it just kind of struck a chord with me at that time. I was still just a teenager, probably just at school, maybe just left school, and I just thought, yeah, it would be really cool to live in a castle or something one day. And that's what it was. I just thought, that could be really cool. And then, of course, thought no more about it for years and years and years. And then if we jump forward to about 1994, and my friends in the UK, I was still living in the UK in those days, we were all big into motor racing, and we took a journey over to the French Grand Prix, which would have been, I think, June, July time. And on the way back from the French Grand Prix, which was at a place called Magny-Cours in Nevers, and actually not too far away from here, about 3 hours away from here. On the way back, we still hadn't spent all of the money we took with us, so we decided to treat ourselves and stay overnight on the way back to Calais at a chateau quite close to Orléans. And that was when I first stayed in the chateau, and I thought that was it was amazing. It was historic, it was an old property. Again, all my interest in history and architecture, that started triggering a few things within me. And then about, I guess 3-4 years later, a guy I knew, a client of mine, he owned a chateau in France near Le Touquet, and he wanted to get some furniture and paintings over to his chateau. And he knew I had a delivery business. I was renting some property from him. I was doing some deliveries for him, mostly wine down into London. And he approached me and he said, look, I've got all this stuff. I want to get over to the chateau in France. I'll pay you to take it over and you can stay for the weekend at the chateau if you want. So yeah, great. What could go wrong with that? Great idea. So myself and my girlfriend at the time, we drove over to Le Touquet and we stayed in his chateau for the weekend, and it was beautiful. Quite a modern neoclassical chateau. And I knew he was trying to sell it, and he wanted, I think it was about £450,000 for that chateau. And I thought that was really cheap. At that time in the UK, you couldn't buy that much for £450,000. Certainly not a property like a chateau. So that again started ringing a few things in my head. Wow, it'd be great, wouldn't it, to buy a chateau, have a chateau. It's not that expensive really in real terms. And then, again, it disappeared out of my brain, work, other things. And then how long after that was it? I guess seven years or so ago, I started watching Chateau DIY, which I'm sure many of you have watched Chateau DIY. And I was enjoying watching Dick and Angel renovate their chateau. And I started thinking, crikey, I always thought about having a chateau and buying a chateau, and it would be amazing to renovate a chateau. I'd always fancied renovating an old church, actually. I fancied that, and getting some old church, turning it into a home. I thought that would be really cool as well. So when I started watching Chateau DIY, I then started to really think seriously about, why not buy a chateau? And that's when I started looking into it. And the rest is history, as they say. Right, let's move on to question 3. And to ask the actual question today, it's Laurie Smith, Linda Montz, and Julie Sohn.
How many of you actually live full-time at the chateau?
Do you have a family or partner with you?
Is it you and your wife alone, or are more people involved?
The answer to this question is mostly it's me, by myself here, except when friends come out. My girlfriend is from Austria, and she spends a lot of the time in Austria. I spend a lot of the winter in Austria as well. But of course, she is here quite regularly throughout the summer. Also, each summer, my 2 children and 2 grandchildren come out to stay. So there is a little bit of family coming and going, but really the answer to the question is the vast majority of the time, I'm actually here by myself. I have a lot of friends in the area around here, of course, so I have a bit of a social life. Over the last 5 years, I've got to know quite a few other people in the area who also own chateaus. So we've got our own little group, little association where we help each other. We have ideas, solutions to different things, all chateau related. So I'm not actually living like a hermit. Right, question 4. This question comes from our friend TJ Bren in Minnesota. Ask away.
Do you have an off-camera crew of thousands guiding you? Are you making it all up on the fly?
Do I have an off-camera crew of thousands? Well, that would be nice. That would be great. But in all honesty, no. Mostly it's me making these video blogs and doing a lot of the jobs around the chateau myself. And actually making these video blogs, it's one of the hardest things actually, because as I sit here now talking to my mobile phone, it's quite a difficult thing to do. It's not something I particularly enjoy. And do I make it up on the fly? Not exactly. Obviously, I think about it. I have some notes. It's a little bit on the fly, but it would definitely be nice at times to have someone else standing behind the camera to actually talk to, as opposed to just talking to my mobile phone. It's not something I find very easy. It's a bit strange. And obviously around the chateau from time to time, yes, we have artisans and other people working here. Hope that answers your question, TJ. Let's move on to question 5, which has been asked by our friend TJ again, also by Laurie Smith, and our architect follower, Matt. Far away.
What led you to choose this specific chateau versus a villa in Italy or a Cotswold manor house?
What brought you to this particular chateau, as many are for sale and might have been less of a major rebirth?
I would love to hear more about what brought you to the chateau and how did you assemble this remarkable team of artisans?
Well, Matt, what brought me to the chateau here? I wasn't actually looking for a particular area of France. I was more looking for a specific type of chateau. And my girlfriend and I, we had gone around various parts of France looking at different chateaux and realised that how they were described and the photographs in the advertising didn't normally live up to how they actually looked when we arrived there, because they'd probably been empty for quite a few years since the photographs were taken. And there were always lots of things about them that I didn't like, or they didn't have things that I wanted. So what I did was I made a checklist of about 20 things that I would really like to have at a chateau. And then I just kept looking online, tick, 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 no, that one doesn't work, tick, no, that doesn't. And eventually, after about 2 years of looking online, this chateau came up for sale and it ticked a lot of the boxes. And came to look at it, immediately knew it was the right one and went from there. So that's what brought me to this chateau. It wasn't this area, it was the actual chateau itself. As to assembling the group of artisans that have worked here over the years, I'd like to say that I was very clever, like it was genius solutions on my part, but actually, really it's just by trial and error. Some people we've had in have not been very good at all, other people have been very good. You get recommended people, you see projects at other chateaus, people on Facebook. So there's many ways to get the artisans. The trick is, yes, finding the ones who are very good. And I think quite quickly you can work out who the good ones are and who the not so good ones are. Laurie, your question about why not buy a chateau that needed less work? As I just said, I was looking for a particular chateau, a very old chateau, a medieval chateau. And one of the things that I wanted to do, I realised that with the chateau, most of the problems that people have are with the heating, with the electrics, with the plumbing, because that's normally very, very old. And I realised that you would most likely have to renew most, if not all, of the plumbing and the electrics. You would have to find a solution for the heating as well, because heating chateaus can be extremely expensive. And if you buy a chateau that's kind of renovated, it's all in very nice condition, especially some of the newer ones, the neoclassical chateaus, which have got the beautiful panelling, the plastered walls, the really nice floors. So the decor is in very good condition. The problem you have there is if you want to put in new electrics, you want to put in new plumbing, it's very difficult to rip all of that nice decor out. And in some cases, it would be impossible to rip it out. And I hate the idea of running electrics and pipes along the outside of walls. And what I've always wanted to do is have all the electrical wiring and all the plumbing hidden and concealed. And with a chateau that's in the condition that this chateau is in, it's not a problem to start cutting into walls and putting the pipes and wiring behind them and then putting the stone over it again, because we were going to be doing the walls anyway. And again, the floors, a lot of the floors here are tomettes and they can be taken up very easily, and they're very good for underfloor heating, because my idea had always been to put in underfloor heating that would be powered by electric underfloor heating, and to run that through solar panels. And in that way, you would have a chateau that had quite a good green footprint and very low cost, if not zero cost, of electric to heat the chateau. So that, Laurie, I hope answers your question. TJ, buying a chateau in France, or a home in the Cotswolds, or a villa in Tuscany? To be honest, I always thought I would buy another property in Italy. I love Italy. I've spent so many wonderful times in Italy, and Tuscany especially. However, chateaus are a lot cheaper than big homes in the Cotswolds and villas in Italy. And I wanted a lot of land as well, which was a slightly crazy idea. So really, the only financial choice to have something like that was a chateau in France. Question 6 is from Linda again, Linda Montz.
What are your plans for the chateau? And perhaps if you've ever had any regrets.
Linda, the plan is set over 5 stages, and the accommodation we plan to have here is mainly going to be self-catering within the chateau and within the outbuildings in the grounds, giving people the opportunity to live the dream, if you like, to come and experience a chateau life without actually having to own or renovate a chateau. And as I said, it's a 5-stage project. The first stage is just getting 6 rooms, 6 ensuite rooms within the main chateau up and ready to rent out. 2 of these rooms will be large suites that will be bed and breakfast, not self-catering. But 4 of the rooms will be split into 2 separate 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartments with their own living area and their own kitchen. So people can come and live in the chateau as if it was their own and enjoy the grounds and all the facilities that are here. And that's stage 1, 6 rooms. Stage 2, which will be financed by renting out the first 6 rooms, will be a further 6 rooms. These next 6 rooms will actually be up in the loft area, the attic of the chateau. And they'll be pretty easy to construct because they're all going to be new builds. So we're going to put in false floors, have to build new walls, and we won't be involved in knocking down any walls, cutting through 1 metre thick stone walls to make doors, taking down ceilings. All the stuff we've done in the first 6 rooms, we won't have to do in the second 6. The second 6 will be much cheaper to do and much faster. And they will be the same. They will be split into bed and breakfast rooms and also self-catering apartments. So by the end of stage 2, the chateau should be finished internally with 12 ensuite bedrooms in total. There'll also be a reception area, a lounge area, and in stage 3, the grand salon in the chateau will also become a restaurant. Also in stage 3, we will start renovating the outbuildings, where we will again have self-catering accommodation. The big water tower, that will be converted into a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom unit with a beautiful glazed atrium on the top of it. The little cottage next to it, that will be a 1-bedroom cottage with its own kitchen, and it will have a private garden with jacuzzi and barbecue, as will the water tower conversion. We will also put in the wellness side, the spa facilities, which are a very big part of our project. So we will have steam rooms, saunas, we're going to have massage and treatment rooms, because one of the big things about this project is we want to make it eventually a one-stop holiday destination and spa/stroke wellness destination. So people can come here not just for a few nights, you can come and stay for a week, you can enjoy all the facilities, the leisure facilities, massages in the treatment rooms, use a swimming pool, saunas, the jacuzzis, all the walks through the woods, the picnic areas. So all of that comes into stage 3 and stage 4. Stage 4 and 5 will be expanding the big barn that we have here into a 4 or 5 bedroom self-contained house, and in one of the other big barns putting in some corporate conference facilities, and just expanding on everything that we can offer here at Klebodius. So that is the final plan, to turn Klebodius into a beautiful holiday destination with first-class wellness and spa facilities and lots of great leisure facilities. Moving on to question 7. 2 questions pretty much the same, which come from our architect friend Matt and also from TJ in Minnesota. What do you guys like to know?
As an architect practicing here in France, I'm always interested to hear how folks have approached the challenges of space planning in these lovely ancient buildings, making a many centuries old building fit for purpose in modern times, and with a different use, assuming you don't plan to live there like a 14th century lord.
How do you want the building to look and perform its duties? All high-tech and on display, or as authentically medieval as possible?
Matt, very good question, in fact. Firstly, no, I don't plan to live here like a 14th century lord with lots of servants. Don't think that's going to happen. But yes, bringing the chateau up to date for modern services, well, that is quite a tricky thing. We've already touched on it a little bit. The electrics, we've put them all into the stone walls, which involves us cutting out a lot of the stone from the walls, putting the cabling in, and then re-putting the stone back and filling up the cut that we've made in the wall and repointing it. And that's actually not too difficult. It's just time consuming putting the electrics into the walls. The really tricky bit is the plumbing, or more specifically the waste, because the actual plumbing taking the water around the chateau, a lot of it can go up in the attic area, and also it can be put into the stone walls in pretty much the same way as the electric cabling. But the waste, which leaves the building, that obviously can't go up and down and wiggle around through walls. That has to go downwards and along very set routes. And obviously this chateau was never ever built or designed to put plumbing and waste into. It was designed as a fortress to keep people out. So it wasn't as difficult as you might think, because I found two areas within the chateau where we could pretty much bring almost like creating a big conduit or something, where we would bring the wastewater down and all of the electrics and water up. And so there are two areas within the chateau. Actually, let's tell a lie, there are three areas, because there's another one at this end of the chateau. So there are three main areas where we're running electrics and water and bringing waste down. And we've been a little bit lucky with the way the floorboards were laid and the beams in which they were laid on, in which the waste pipes could actually go along in the direction we wanted without having to cut out any beams or cut holes through beams. But yes, it did take a lot of planning, and that's one of the big jobs we have completed. The whole chateau now is pretty much plumbed, and all of the waste from every area within the chateau is now in situ, and the pipes go right to the outside of the building. And one of the things I will complete this summer is then connecting those waste pipes to the external waste pipes. It will take them to the main wet well, where the waste will be pumped up to the main road. And one of the things that we've done here, we've always tried to do everything really top quality. So we've used the absolute best modern plumbing pipes, which come from Germany. And the waste pipes are actually soundproofed. So where the large waste pipes that run down through the building, if someone flushes a toilet upstairs, you won't hear the gurgling of the water as it comes down through the pipe. But Matt, that was a thing that took a lot of thought. TJ, how do I want the building to look? Modern or medieval? The answer, which we've already sort of touched on, is I want it to still be looking medieval, which is why we are putting all of the plumbing and all of the electrics into the walls. So everything will look very much as it might have done many hundreds of years ago. And not everywhere will be medieval, because each suite within the chateau will be decorated to a certain period in the chateau's history. So we will have a medieval suite, but we'll also have a suite from the 1600s. We'll have a suite from the mid-17 to early 1800s, which is the period of the French Revolution. We will have a suite from the 1800s, and they will be decorated in accordance with that period of history, and they will all be furnished with mostly antiques from that period in history as well. So trying to keep things very, very authentic. Not really too much modern in the signature suites. In the suites that we're putting into the attic, which is the stage 2, they will be a bit more modern. So they will be modern looking rooms with antiques in, but not as exact to period as the signature suites in the original part of the chateau. Question 8, TJ again. TJ had lots of questions, which I like. It's good. And he's a very regular follower of our progress here. So, TJ, what's your next question?
Taking on a monumental project like this must be quite a learning experience. Can you share some of the most difficult or surprising lessons or personal revelations about yourself?
Yes and yes. It is a monumental project, and it has been a huge learning experience. I've been fortunate enough to work with people, with artisans who are very talented in their particular fields. And through that, I have learned a lot. I've learned a lot about repointing walls, about dressing stone, about working with stone. I've learned a lot about decorating. Some of what I've learned, I am now able to do myself. Some, most certainly not. I've learned a lot about the plumbing and the electrical side of things, but there is no way that I am qualified to be able to do the plumbing or the electrics, nor would I want to. You need professional people to do those, especially electrics. Electrics need to be done really, really properly, and that's been a very good learning experience, how to put those services into a building like this. I think the most difficult thing I've learned it's nothing to do with the chateau itself. It's to do with the grounds, the land. We have over 60 acres of land and forest here. And that I definitely severely underestimated what it would take. It takes so much maintenance. Everywhere was very, very overgrown. And when I first looked at the property, it didn't really faze me at all because I was totally naive. I thought that was going to be pretty easy. We'll just do this, we'll just cut that, we'll do this. But it's probably the thing that's the most frustrating. It takes the most work. If you're working inside the chateau and you strip down a window, which I've been doing the last few weeks, you restore the window frame, you put it back in, it all looks great. You don't have to go and restore it next week or next month. It's there for many years, no more work required. The land on the other side, you clear an area of the weeds and the scrub and get it looking nice again, and within 2 weeks nature is already fighting you back, and you have to go back in and keep it clear, and you have to seed the grass, and you have to wait for the grass to grow, and then you have to keep cutting the grass. At the moment here in France we're having a really, really hot summer, a drought. Everywhere is like a desert outside, so I don't have to cut the grass. Even the weeds are hardly growing, but then it's watering the trees and the plants. We've planted over 100 trees since we were here to replace some of the ones we've cut down, but also because we're trying to landscape the park and the parkland for the future. And if we don't water those trees, they're going to die. And it's not even just the cost of the trees. Those trees have been planted for several years now, and it would put you back years. So that's probably the thing I've learned the most. And one of the things I actually enjoy the most about the property is the managing and the thought that goes into the whole estate, the estate management. But my God, it is hard work, and I have learned a lot about that. Question 10, another question from TJ. Ask away.
Is this a personal dream or a legacy project you'd like to hand over to someone eventually?
Personal dream or a legacy project? A little bit of both, really. When I came into it, was it a personal dream? Sort of, as I've already discussed. A legacy project, that came more after buying the chateau. After buying the chateau and starting work on the restorations, you come to realise that you have a very, very big responsibility to these buildings. This building has stood here for over 800 years, and it will be standing here for hopefully many more 100 years to come, long after I've gone. Therefore, you have a responsibility to do everything correctly to the very, very best of your ability. And to be honest, that's one of the things that does annoy me about some of the renovation projects I see on TV and online, is that people that own these historic buildings do not accept the responsibility for doing the best work they can that will last more than just a couple of years. It should last a century or more. So a legacy project, yes. The aim really is to make the chateau able to stand on its own 2 feet, to protect it for the future, to bring it right up into the modern world. These buildings were never designed to make money. They were designed to cost you fortunes in money. They're very, very expensive to run. They were designed as fortresses to keep people out. So they were never designed for the modern world. And it's quite a task to find a way to make them be able to exist in the modern world. So that's one of the big things now. The legacy is to bring the chateau to a point where it's not crazy expensive to run and to heat, that it will be able to be used in a way that will provide enough income to keep restoring, to keep maintaining the buildings and the whole of the the whole of the park and everything that goes along with the chateau, to provide an income to the people who are running it, living here, because obviously that's important. People do need to make an income. Obviously, it would be nice if it makes enough money to pay me back the money I've put into it. As a legacy, yes, my children and grandchildren, at the moment, we are looking at them taking it over, with them moving forward and hopefully with the same ideals that I have about the whole building, the whole project. Thank you. Question 11 comes to us from Jane Blanford and Phil Vale and relates really to the last video blog and the project that I'm still getting on with at the moment, i.e. the windows. What would you guys like to know?
How many more windows to go?
How many more windows to restore?
Honest answers, I'm not entirely sure. There are around about 50 windows in the whole chateau, and we have restored and renovated, I would think, a good 70-75% of them. Not all of the window frames have been renovated as yet, but we're quite a way forward with that. What we did to start with when first was here at the chateau, took a lot of the windows out and they went off to a guy that I found on Facebook who had renovated windows in another chateau up in the northern part of France, and I took them up to him and he would renovate them over the winter, and then in the spring I would pick them up and bring them back down here. So didn't do that work myself. He did a vast majority of the windows and he did a really good job. The ones that are left I'm now able to restore and renovate myself, and there are not too many to go. Some have been partially renovated by workers that we've had here, but they've not been done as well as I would like, so I'm redoing some of those a little bit. There are a couple of places where we're putting in, or we're having to put in some new windows or make up some new frames because they were too rotten. But really, guys, windows has been a massive part of this project. And as I said in the last video, I think it takes you probably at least a week to properly renovate the window and the frame. And with 40 or 50 windows in the chateau for one person, that's nearly a year and a half of work alone. Question 12 comes from Linda Montz.
What is the metal tower?
Something that I get asked quite a lot, both online and by people who are visiting the chateau. And the answer is it's a wind turbine. It's a Bollé wind turbine, and I believe there are only about 10, 11, 12 of these left in France. I guess quite a few of you probably follow the wonderful chateau restoration, Chateau de Punon, and they also have a Bollé wind turbine there. Essentially what it was for, it was installed in the late 1800s, and it sits above the old chateau well. And it pumps up the water out of the well, or it used to pump up the water out of the well, and it would put it into a water tank on top of the old tower in the front garden, and that old tower was actually once a pigeonniere. And in the late 1800s, the owners of the chateau at that point, who were the Trouvé family, they had the wind turbine built and the water tower connected to it so that they could supply the chateau with fresh water from the well. It's a landmark of the village, and one day when I have enough money coming in, we will fully restore it. All of the running gear that goes with it to pump water out of the well is still in place and would still actually work. Quite a lot of the blades on the actual turbine itself at the top have rusted and fallen off and would need replacing, but it's generally in pretty good condition. There is actually on our YouTube channel a video all about the wind turbine. Question 13, a quick question from Karen Delia, I think it is.
Great work. I do not see the hype button to get you guys out there more. I will gladly hype you if it's an option.
The hype button, yes, Karen. I would love you to be able to hype our videos, and the answer really is until we get to over 4,000 watch hours over the last year, we won't be able to join the partner program with YouTube, and in joining that partner program, we get the hype button. So we're quite close to the 4,000 hours now. So hopefully in the next month or two, the more hours you guys watch, the quicker we'll get to it. And hopefully very soon we will have a hype button where our followers can hype and promote our channel to everyone else out there. Probably should have said this at the beginning, but please watch the video right to the end, because the more watch time hours, the better it is for us. Question 14 from Laurie Smith. The big question.
How do you all fund these massive renovations?
Yeah, the big question, the burning question. How do we fund this project, these renovations? Well, the answer to that really is the chateau was bought in the name of a corporate trust, so it can be passed on, hopefully, as I said, to my children and grandchildren. It was funded initially by my own personal savings and by some inheritance money that I had received. And the ongoing renovations have been funded pretty much by my own income. Some friends have also invested some money into the project, which is really appreciated and fantastic of them. But yeah, moving forward, the plan is hopefully the YouTube channel will expand. Hopefully we can build up a Patreon following, and through the YouTube channel receive income, which we will put 100% towards renovations. But in the short term, it's pretty much whatever I can earn myself goes into the renovation. Many times I get asked, how long is it going to be before the renovations are finished? And I always answer, about 200,000 euros. And people say, well, no, not how much, how long? I said, well, really, that's the answer. It's the cost, because the renovations to get stage 1 open could be done in 9 to 12 months. It's just having the funding available to do those renovations. So it's not really a question of how long, it's more a question of how much. So Laurie, that's a good question about the funding of it and how we do it. Question 15 is from Gloria Smeested, I think your name is. Apologies if I've got it wrong.
Will you line the ditch with anything?
Good question. It really goes back to what I was saying a few minutes ago about bringing the chateau up into the modern era. And yes, lining the ditch with something. So the parkland of the chateau has a ditch that comes across it, where a lot of the rainwater from the fields around the chateau, farmers' fields, drain onto our land. That ditch runs into the small lake that we have at the back of the chateau, and then another ditch from that lake comes across here and out the far end of the chateau land and drains into the commune drainage system. And we have quite a big drainage and ditch system to handle this water. So yes, will we line the ditches? Almost certainly yes, I want to line them in some way. It would be really good to be able to create some reservoirs where we can hold water, because we get a lot of water here over the winter and not so much in the summer. So it would be great to have a way to hold that water and use it to water the gardens, to water the plants, to water the trees if we need to. I did try to put in a reservoir at the end of last year in the autumn. Pascal, my farmer friend, with his digger, we dug a big reservoir to hold water, and my plan was to pump it onto the orchard this summer. And unfortunately, it's been so hot that the reservoir was full at the end of April, and by the end of June it had pretty much all evaporated. It wasn't lined, but it wasn't actually draining out of the reservoir. It was, I guess some of it was probably draining away, but most of it was just evaporating. So I think the solution to that is going to be having some tanks that are buried under the ground, where we can put water through a filter and store it within these tanks and then pump it out onto the gardens in the summer. Catherine Barthorpe has question 16 for me.
The chateau looks beautiful inside. Do you live at the chateau?
Yes, I agree with you. I think the chateau is really beautiful inside, and as we finish the renovations, I think it will become even more beautiful inside. Sadly, no, I do not live in here at the moment. Although it's been so hot, I have thought about taking a camp bed down into the cellar where it's really nice and cool. One day, yes, I will live here once the renovations are finished and we have everything operating, all the services fully connected. I will have my own apartment up in the attic area above the old hall. Initially, I think it will just be a bedroom and a bathroom. The kitchen and living areas will take longer because the money that comes in to start with is definitely going to go towards furthering the renovations. the income that we get from renting out the apartments here at the chateau will then fund the next stage and the next stage and the next stage. So I will have a bedroom and a bathroom, but I don't think I'll have a full-on apartment until we get a lot of the rest of the place open and up and running. Question 17 comes from Jose, or Jose, not sure, apologise again if I've got it wrong.
Is your chateau listed as monument historic?
The short answer to that question is no. The chateau is not listed as an historic monument. We could choose to have it listed as a historic monument, but I don't think we're going to do that. We would get some grants and funding from the French government if we did it, but then we have to use specified artisans and we have to do everything as it was originally built. So if we're looking at renovating a room that comes from the 1200s, that's quite a lot of expertise and expensive materials, expensive artisans. Chateau de Pounon, that is exactly what they're doing, and they're doing an amazing job, but their project is totally different to ours. I want to have total control over what we do. We are trying to do it as authentically as possible, to the highest quality as possible. So I'm pretty sure we will not ask to be registered as a historic monument. Not many questions to go. Next one comes from Matt, our architect friend.
Curious to hear about your experience with the various regulatory bodies in France charged with protecting old buildings.
Yes, great question, Matt, and a typical one from an architect, that's for sure. Yeah, we have actually had very positive experiences. When we first bought the chateau was outside the plan area for the village, and the chateau itself obviously had use as accommodation, but all of the old buildings, they did not have use for accommodation, which could be a problem. And we first approached the planners, and they were right in the middle of a massive process of taking control away from the mayors of each commune and making a big planning area of, I think, about 52 different communes. And they had their hands pretty full at the time of that. So when we approached them, they were basically, sorry, don't approach us, we're busy, we don't want to know. We asked maybe we could just get a change of use. No, don't put in for that because we're going to say no. We're busy for the next year or two trying to sort out all these different communes into one big planning region. Okay, but we then got a lot of help from the local mayor and through him, the local government in the next big town. And from there, we got a lot of help from the prefecture for the whole area. And we had to do a presentation on what our project was about, what we were intending to spend, what we wanted to do, how it was going to help the local community. And glad to say that once we'd done that presentation, our problems with the planning basically just went away. And ever since then, we've had more help than we can wish for. We haven't asked for lots of planning changes. The planning changes really are what we do to the outside of the buildings, and we're not making very many changes to those. Having had permission to turn all of the outbuildings into accommodation, that was the big one. We have agreement for all the leisure facilities you want to put here, the swimming pool, set areas, set space where we can do leisure activities. Inside the actual chateau, we pretty much got a free rein there because it's not a historic monument. So all in all, my experiences with the local regulations and regulatory bodies has been positive. Last but one question is kind of from myself because I get asked this a lot. What have I learned and what would I do differently if I was to start the whole process all over again? Obviously, I have learned a great deal, and I certainly have no intention to buy another chateau and start all over again with the knowledge that I now have. What have I learned? A lot about the land and the estate management. Basically, you need bigger and bigger and bigger equipment. When you have a lot of land, you just need big equipment, big mowers, big tractors. Clearing the land, we started to do that initially with volunteers and just doing it ourselves, labouring, and it took weeks to clear land. And then I realised that if you get someone in with a great big digger, they can do in one day what you can do in about 2 or 3 weeks. So you need big equipment. Grass is your friend. all the areas that get overgrown, the areas that we've cleared and tried to bring back under control, the easiest way to keep them under control is to seed them with grass, and then you just mow it. You need bigger and bigger mowers, but grass is very easy to maintain. And actually, I also learned that you don't really even have to seed it with grass. If you have an area where you've got grass around it, and you get an area where there's no grass that you've cleared, just keep mowing it, and eventually, within 2 years, the grass will be there, and it will be nice grass. Renovating at the chateau, what have I learned? Really, right from the start, I would have brought in very qualified artisans, could have saved myself a lot of time and effort in doing things twice. But really, I think what I've done, what we've done here, we've pretty much got it right all of the time. Sometimes it's taken us a little bit longer to get it right than it needed to do. But with any project, especially a big project like this, you have to learn as you go along. You can't know it all for sure. When I first looked at the building before we even bought it, I had in my head how each room would be laid out, what each room would be, because with the information about the chateau, there were floor plans of each floor, and I drew out how it would be, what I thought would work. And I have to say that is exactly as it has turned out. We haven't changed anything really. All the rooms are exactly as I thought they would be, and that I'm very pleased about. So the final question, which we're going to give to our friend TJ Bren. I think he's won the prize for the most questions today, TJ. And that question is,
Will your YouTube channel end when the restoration ends?
the answer to that is, one, I don't think the renovations will ever be complete because we have all of the land, the exterior wall that goes around the land, and we're obviously going to be updating, and things will need repairing and renewing as we move forward. But know that the YouTube channel will continue. Obviously, we perhaps might not be doing as much actual restoration within the chateau, but there will be lots going on about chateau life and how we manage the chateau and the estate and what we do for our guests and how all of that works out. So I hope the YouTube channel will continue on and on. So thank you very much for all of your questions. I hope you've enjoyed listening to me waffle on. I hope it's made things a little bit clearer. I hope you will give us a like, because that definitely helps. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. That definitely helps. And thank you for watching, and see you next time.